and just dig into your word. I thank you that you're here with us. God, and I just pray that everything that we do and say here would honor and glorify you. I just pray that you move me out of the way and we would hear directly from you. That's in your name. Amen. All right, so we're going to be getting back into the book of Hebrews. We're going to be in Hebrews chapter 2 again, but working through verses 5 through 18. Before we get into any of that, me and some of my friends that are around my age last night went out into downtown Kingsport, and we bought like 10 boxes of pizza and like 4 cases of water. And we went out through the community of downtown Kingsport, basically just to search out for people who are in need, that need food or water. It's really hot. There are people that are hungry. There's a much larger homeless population than you would think exists in downtown Kingsport. And it was cool because over about a period of 2 hours, we got to just meet a lot of people where they were at, talk with them, pray with them, feed them, give them water, and just different things of that nature. But I just want to ask you, not only as a church family, but as an individual, what's keeping you from doing that? What's keeping you from doing something like that for someone? It's not a time to brag on me for going and doing things of that nature, but as people of God, Christ clearly teaches us that when we do something for the least of these, we do it directly for him. It's as if we're doing it for him. So if we have people in need in our community, it's beautiful. We got to send out David Charlton this morning, one of my students and someone that's become a dear friend of mine, to go out into the world and serve the world for Christ. But why is it so easy for us as people to overlook the folks that are in our backyard, that are sitting out on a curb, that are starving, that need our help? I was talking to one homeless guy in downtown named Scott, and he just shared with me in an honest way. He said, I see, it breaks my heart. I love the Lord and he takes care of me, but I watch person after person after person drive by in a $60,000 car that can't spare me $10 to get some food. And that breaks my heart because we as Christians have developed this judgmental attitude where we think that every single person that's asking for assistance is some bum that just wants a handout. And that could not be further from the truth. As children of God, we need to develop a compassionate heart that cares for all people, regardless of where they're at or what we're going through. We need to be people that ask less questions and respond with more love. And that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but that burdened my heart to go through that community last night to find people that are sleeping in an abandoned area under the railroad tracks that is in our city that we pay no attention to whatsoever, because we would rather turn them into a statistic or pretend like they don't exist than actually encounter them face to face and help them. They're a person just like you. 10 minutes of your time is 10 minutes of your time. $10 out of your wallet is $10 out of your wallet. This is a daily struggle that these people are going through, and they live here, and they need your help. So find a way to serve them. Find a way to help them, because those are the very people that Christ came to save. So, man, take your mask off, take your blinders off, and start to be an authentic person that genuinely cares about all people. Hebrews 2, 5 through 18. It was not to angels that God subjected the world to come, of which we're speaking. It has been testified somewhere, what is man that you are mindful of him, or the son of man that you care for him? You made him for a little while lower than the angels. You have crowned him with glory and honor, putting everything in subjection under his feet. Now in putting everything in subjection to him, he left nothing outside of his control. At present, we do not yet see everything in subjection to him, but we see him who for a little while was made lower than the angels, namely Jesus, crowned with glory and honor because of the suffering of death, so that by the grace of God he might taste death for everyone. For it was fitting that he, for whom and by whom all things exist, in bringing many sons to glory, should make the founder of their salvation perfect through suffering. For he who sanctifies and those who are sanctified all have one source. That is why he is not ashamed to call them brothers, saying, I will tell of your name to my brothers. In the midst of the congregation I will sing your praise. And again I will put my trust in him. And again, behold, I and the children God has given me. Since therefore the children share in flesh and blood, he himself likewise partook of the same things, that through death he might destroy the one who has the power of death, that is, the devil, and deliver all those who through fear of death were subject to lifelong slavery. For surely it is not angels that he helps, but he helps the offspring of Abraham. Therefore he had to be made like his brothers in every respect, so that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in the service of God, to make propitiation for the sins of the people. For because he himself has suffered when tempted, he is able to help those who are being tempted. So we're going to work through a few of these verses at a time and then kind of talk about just the ideology behind all this thing. Verse 9, when you look into that, it's essentially coming along in this passage to help us understand verse 5 through 8. It's kind of giving us some more context. It's teaching us that for a little while, Christ was made lower than the angels. Verse 7 says that man is lower than the angels, but from what we read in that previous verse, Christ was only lower for a little while, and that's significant because that is showing us that he was not going to stay there. Right? He was temporarily made lower than the angels so that he could fully make a way for us. Verse 14, it teaches us that angels are sent to serve those who will inherit salvation, which is you and me, right? It's the children of God. But when we go into the book of 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 11, it teaches us that angels are spoken of as more powerful than humans. You're probably thinking like, wow, that's great info, but what does that have to do with anything? What is it all pointing to, and what does that mean for us? Well, it's actually very, very important. It means that the God of the universe took on a truly inferior form, right? The form of man while being fully God, and he lived a perfect life on our behalf. What it means for us is that the perfect sacrifice truly has been made. Our sin is 100% atoned for. Christ truly humbled himself and came to offer us the gift of salvation, which we do not deserve, which we cannot earn on our own. And not only is he offering us that gift, but he made that gift. Right? That's where it even takes a more beautiful, full picture effect for us. This is a God that's offering us this beautiful gift, but he also created the very gift that he is offering us. The author himself stepped into his own story, and he made it so that he could save us, right? Because he loves us more than we can even imagine. Verses 6 through 8 show us that God created humanity to have lordship over all things, right? When we look back into the book of Genesis, we were literally made to have dominion over creation and rule with him forever, reign with him forever. That was the intention of Eden, for us to be with God and enjoy him forever, to reign alongside of him. But then we fell short, we chose sin, and we lost absolutely everything in that moment because we lost the thing that he had created for us, and then he had to come and rescue us to bring us back to him. We need to understand the big truth that this is showing us, and that is that through that story, through the things that we have talked about, with God, we have absolutely everything. We obtain all things through God, but without him, we lose everything. We lose all things. There is no middle ground. It's either we are with him and we obtain everything, or we are against him and we lose everything. Christ became one with man, and that is very important to understand, that he shared in our temptations, our sufferings, and even the death that we will experience, that he may enable us to become one with him, to share with his nature and his rule. And because of this, Christ has been crowned with honor and glory. He is deserving of the standing that he has. And because of those things, mankind has the assurance that Christ is gracious, kind, and understanding. right? He's been through all of it already. So he can perfectly sympathize with us. He will help those who love him to become one with him and thus qualify for that glorious inheritance that he promises his children. And that's found in verses 17 through 18 of the text that we were just talking about. So now that we have a better understanding of what is being communicated, I think there are three important questions that you have to answer in this text. And we're going to answer those things. One, what is salvation and why is it a thing? Two, why is Christ the only one who can cancel out my sin debt, make a way for me, and save me? And three, why is it so significant that Christ came? So what is salvation and why is it a thing? It is deliverance from sin and its consequences. And that can only be found by faith in Christ. We live in a world that is going to tell you that there are so many ways that you can find happiness. There are different paths to your eternity. There are different options for you. But at the end of the day, there is only one option for salvation. One option for deliverance from sin and its consequences. And that one way is found by faith in Jesus Christ. And it is a thing because from the beginning, we were a people that ran from God, chose the world over him, and actively lived in rebellion. It is a thing because we, as a people, need saving. We are lost. We are hopeless. And he knows what is in store for us without him. God gave himself so that we could have him. That's an incredible concept that we cannot even wrap our minds around because we see him in part currently. And the much larger spectrum of him that we haven't experienced yet, we're going to experience that in full. It's going to be incredible. His desire from the beginning was for us to be with him. Eden that we brought up earlier, what we saw in Genesis when we read was his chief desire for us, which is to enjoy him forever. But for whatever reason, we chose the world and continue to choose the world to this very day. Christ is the only one who could cancel out our debt because there was a balance that had to be paid for our sin. We were in a sin debt that we could never pay back. As you get into those Old Testament sacrificial rituals and different things of that nature, you see that there were no amount of sacrifices and offerings that could stack up to pay the debt made by us because our debt is ever growing, right? Our debt only increases. There are no amount of sacrifices or blood that can cover it. We sin every single day, multiple times a day. And if your sinning was tied to withdrawals from an ATM, then you would be out of money in like 2 hours. Imagine being in way over your head in debt to the bank. And before you can even think about gathering enough funding to pay it off, it's already gone up 1,000 times over. You are a debtor. All right, you're a debtor, and your debt is ever growing. And because of that, you can't possibly pay off the debt that is still coming for you because imperfection cannot fill imperfection, but perfection can. All right, imperfection can never fill imperfection, but perfection can. And that is why the perfect Son of God was the only one who could cancel out our sin debt, because his perfection truly does blot out our imperfection. All right? For us, imperfection taking the place of imperfection is like putting lipstick on a pig, right? It doesn't really do anything to help. But perfection can completely cancel out imperfection. Christ is the only one who can make a way for us because he is the only one who can walk the path that leads to everlasting life. And he is the only spotless sacrifice that can be made. A good man is not good enough. A fattened calf is not good enough. A decent life does not cut it. It has to be blood for blood. And the only thing that can cancel our eternal imperfection is eternal perfection. And the only source of that is through Jesus Christ. All right? It doesn't come any other way. I have an example for you that's going to seem kind of silly, but I think it's really cool. I think when you this is literally like junk mail from my mailbox. I get a lot of this. This is for some kind of an online like insurance app or something like that. But let's just take this for a piece of paper. If I take this piece of paper, something that is easy for me to do is to completely rip it up, right? I can take this piece of paper and I can tear it up. I can destroy it. I can absolutely mutilate this piece of paper to where it looks absolutely nothing like it did when I got it. But the thing that I cannot do to this piece of paper is put it back together. I cannot put this piece of paper back together after I have ripped it up as many times as I want to. No matter how hard I try, I cannot restore this piece of paper to what it was in its original state. And what that shows us is we can tear our lives apart, but no matter how hard we try, we cannot put them back together. We cannot put our lives back together on our own. We can ruin our life, wreck our life, run off as much as we want, but we cannot put the pieces back together. You cannot save yourself. You cannot fix yourself. So why do you keep trying to do this life on your own? Why do you keep trying to fix things on your own that at the end of the day, you have absolutely no power to fix by yourself whatsoever? You're wasting your time. You cannot save yourself. You just can't. And you have to let that statement sink in. No matter how hard you try, no matter how good you do, no matter how moral you are, how much success that you bring, how much you keep the law, how much you study and read God's word, you cannot save yourself. Those small list of accomplishments that you're piling up do not compare to him whatsoever, and they also do not compare to the stack of sin and opposite of accomplishments that you have piled up on the other side of that. You'll never be able to save yourself. Only Jesus can save you. So it's so significant that Christ came because he truly is the only one who can save us, because he can fully identify with everything we've been through. He lived this life, but perfectly. He was tempted, he was tested, and he was ridiculed. And since he was tempted and suffered, he can help us that are going through it also. Jesus is not far off, barely listening, nor is he incapable of understanding the things that you're going through. He has lived it, he has experienced it, he hears you, and he loves you. You just have to trust it, believe it, and rest in it. Trust it, believe it, and rest in it. And for whatever reason, we as followers of Christ have a ridiculously hard time doing those three things. We have so much trouble trusting in it. Things get hard, stuff happens, things get in the way, doubt enters our lives. We go through a valley of sorts in our faith. And honestly, for whatever reason, the last thing that we want to do in those moments is trust him. And that's the one thing that he is asking us to do. He's not far off in a boat just randomly throwing you a life raft to pull in. He's been there with you the entire time. He's simply telling you, I haven't gone anywhere. Your relationship with me isn't based off of feelings, because your feelings change. I don't change. I'm good. I'm here. I love you. Trust me. Whether you're on the mountaintop or the valley or somewhere in between, we can trust him, we can cling to him, we can walk with him, because he's faithful and he's exactly who he says he is. Sometimes it's difficult for us to believe it, And a lot of times that is also tied to our circumstance, tied to the things that we're going through. And if we can't trust it, then there's no way we can believe it. All right, so we have to trust it in order to believe it. And a lot of times we do the opposite of rest in it. For a lot of us, it's almost like we view God as that, he's a perfect father. All right, he's a perfect father, but a lot of us, for whatever reason, kind of view him as that coach dad that sits back and watches us while we're performing, and it's as if the amount of love we are going to get from him is correlated to how well we do in certain events. We think that his love and his approval for us is going to change based off of how we do, and if that was the case, he would never love us at all. He just loves us, right? Our performance can never be good enough to earn his affection, and our performance can never be bad enough to make him hate us or turn away from us or anything like that, because his love is not based off of us at all. It's 100% based off of who he is and what he has done for us. And because of that, we can trust it, we can believe in it, and we can rest in it. Because at the end of the day, this life is not about you whatsoever. It's 100% about him. And so if you'll bow your heads with me, please. I don't know what season of life you're going through right now, but I hope that tonight you can learn to rest in the fact, you can learn that you can trust in him, believe in him, and rest in him, that he truly has made a way for us. He's offered us salvation. He came for us and canceled out our sin debt, made a way for us, and saved us, and he is the only one that could have done that. So if anything tonight, I just pray that you can stand as we sing and just be grateful for everything that he has done. God, thank you so much for the way that you love us. Thank you for the opportunity just to be here and dig into your word. Thank you for this Memorial Day weekend, and thank you for the way that you care for us. It's in your name, amen.